Well, to the extent that we think that there is a global order that's coming that doesn't just involve states, increasingly the tech companies are the ones that are setting the rules. They're setting the rules not in all of our environment, but in the digital space. And given the fact that increasingly our national security is at least as much in the digital space as it is in the physical space, that the way we consume not just products, but also information, political information, is as much in the digital space as it is in the physical space, then the companies that are sovereign in the digital space increasingly wield real geopolitical power. And that becomes very important if we want to understand the future of our world.
So is it a good thing that for America, that they're all U.S. based?
Well, they're not all U.S. based, of course. I mean, if you look at the most powerful companies, tech companies in the world, I would say about half of them are U.S. based and half of them are China based. They're nowhere else. That is clearly good for the United States insofar as China is a closed market and the United States is not. So to the extent that you're particularly interested in aligning with the advanced industrial economies, the wealthiest economies in the world, the one that you'd want to bet the most on in the long term, the fact that the United States happens to have those companies based in the U.S. is very important. But the fact that they're based in the United States doesn't necessarily mean that they're all aligned with the U.S. government. And by the way, the same thing is even true in China with the Chinese government. And I think that those points are important.
In focusing just on the U.S. mega cap names, are they all kind of similar to each other, or are there kind of different brackets between them and implications based on those brackets?
I think it's very clear they're very different. And I would argue that there are a few different models. First, you have companies that are increasingly becoming national champions, kind of like the Lockheed Martin of the 21st century. And those are companies that are primarily more B2B, and they're companies that are more looking at the U.S. government as principal contractors. On the domestic security side, I see Amazon increasingly moving that space. On the international security side, I see Microsoft increasingly moving that space. Very opposite to that, you have people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, who, I mean, I consider techno-utopians, and they're really operating in a space that they assume that the U.S. government increasingly isn't going to play in. In the case of Mark Zuckerberg, it's the civil space. Remember, after the events of January 6th, politically nothing happened to Trump. But in terms of his ability to get information out there to the population, Facebook and Twitter took him down. That's pretty interesting. In the case of Elon Musk, you look at what's happening with SpaceX. NASA is not very relevant in that space anymore. They used to look to the Russians and others to be able to lift things. Now, of course, they're looking to American tech corporations, in particular Elon and SpaceX, who's increasingly becoming a dominant player in low Earth orbit. That's a fascinating thing to talk about, inconceivable even 10 years ago.
So as you know, there's a live debate right now from politicians on both sides of the aisle about whether these tech companies in the U.S. are too big and whether they are monopolistic and whether it's harmful to the consumer and to society. How would you view that discussion in light of some of the geopolitical, more global aspects that you're looking at? Should politicians want to shrink these businesses?
Well, it's an easier argument to make if China doesn't exist, right? Because then you're just saying, well, we obviously want more competition. We don't want dominant firms that can, buy up nascent competition because they own the data space. It's walled gardens. They make the rules. But what happens if the alternative to big, powerful American tech companies is that the Chinese companies become dominant? Because no one's talking about breaking them up. They're much more aligned with the Chinese government. Big companies like Huawei and SMIC on semiconductors and even SenseTime on AI. I mean, no one thinks. We've seen what happened to Microsoft back in the 90s. It's a very long process, a very kludgy process. You want to take 5 or 10 years and have antitrust in the United States while the Chinese are investing strategically into their national champions. That's a much harder argument to have. So it's tricky for Congress to engage in this conversation, not to mention the fact that Congress doesn't have a lot of the technical expertise to understand, what kind of regulations would actually be good for the consumer, for the citizen of the United States.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.